This is going to be an introductory video, just putting forward some personal theories. But first, we're going to be laying the groundwork by mentioning some of the great minds that have come before me here. First, we're just going to give quick shout out to Socrates and Plato for his specific writings. And also Aristotle and Pythagoras, they're going to have things that tie into some of my other videos later. But also we need to mention Manly P. Hall. He was an orator from the early 20th century, from the early 1900s. I'm going to specifically recommend two of his works. The Secret Teachings of All Ages from 1928 and The Initiates of the Flame from 1922. These are interpretations, and I feel that they're important to take a look at and understand symbolism through this specific lens. He had a vast library and long career as an orator and interpreter of ancient cosmology and other symbolism across ages of time. I don't know if I agree with every single one of his works, but his theories are definitely interesting, and he has a fascinating interpretation, and I will recommend these two novels. Next, this is actually going to be building off of the theories of Graham Hancock and Dr. Randall Carlson, the pre-Ice Age civilization and the Younger Dryas impact theories. These are important to understand some of the things that I'll be talking about in these videos. So if you have a chance, or if you're familiar with either of these two gentlemen and their theories, I would definitely take a look if you're not so. Next, this specific video and a couple others will be building off of the alternative theory of Professor David Ulansey. His specific interpretation of the Mithraic mysteries and Mithraicism is, I believe, astoundingly significant when it comes to the interpretation of ancient historical writings and some of the symbolism as well. Next, we're also going to shout out Debunking with Dan Richards, Uncharted X with Ben Van Kurik, and Bright Insight with Jimmy Corsetti. All of these gentlemen are doing work when it comes to identifying and trying to decipher things that might not make super great sense in the established archaeological timeline. I think specifically their work with stone is going to be what actually uncovers the true mystery. The specific work at Göbekli Tepe is going to be vastly important here. I believe that I have evidence that could help rewrite the timeline of the birth of civilization of mankind. And I think Göbekli Tepe is a very important site in helping to understand this. Next, I also want to shout out Charlie Solis on YouTube and Solis Hoods on Instagram. He has a couple of pretty interesting theories that I'll get into later. He's a physicist, and he's also working on a recreation of Nikola Tesla's Tesla turbine, with which Tesla stated was his most proud invention. So I would say check him out. I have a couple other theories of my own that I'll be building off of a couple of his original ideas. Next, we're also going to talk about Larry Paul and his work. He's the director of GreatPyramid.org and Sage Silent on Instagram. His recent discovery and novel, which is The Speed of Light Encoded onto the Great Pyramid, is astonishingly profound. I believe that this is a demonstration of mathematical and astronomical knowledge that's encoded into stonework that could possibly be older than what the actual timeline says. I would check him out. He has a recent discovery when it comes to the encoding of the speed of light into the Great Pyramid. Now, how the ancients knew that and were able to encode that knowledge into a stone structure that then stood the test of time for thousands and thousands of years is pretty fascinating. And I'll be getting into some of the symbolism that I think could help understand just how sophisticated all of this was. Next, we're also going to shout out quickly Helene Blavatsky. Helena Blavatsky, she has a theory of the secret doctrine, or theosophy. This is a woman who lived at the end of the 1800s who proposed that the knowledge of ancient civilizations is known by a small handful of people who keep it safeguarded and have done so across the time of thousands of years, and that they are the precursor to all religions. And I think that there is some interrelationality that I can demonstrate. And next, we're also going to talk about Carl Jung and his specific idea of the archetypes of the collective unconsciousness. I feel that the Jungian perspective on the archetypes specifically builds off of Plato's idea of the realm of forms in a very astonishing way, and that this will help with my presentation of a couple of other things that I'll put out later. But these are just the people for now, and I'll be getting into some more. I have what I believe is symbolic evidence of a pre-Ice Age civilization, an examination and reinterpretation of ancient symbolism. This is to build off of Graham Hancock and Dr. Randall Carlson's theories about the Younger Dryas impact theory. This is also going to be a challenge to some archaeology and maybe some interpretation. I'm not really sure exactly how well received some of this stuff might be. So I believe a pre-Ice Age civilization exists. Call it Atlantis or whatever you want. I believe specific scientific knowledge was known by ancient peoples. We can demonstrate this. And this knowledge was encoded within ancient artifacts and sites that we can demonstrate. I believe the pyramids were much older, possibly. But this level of sophistication is also present in symbolism. And that's passed down along with the artifacts. So if it's possible that there was a civilization that existed that long ago and there were some kind of survivors, there would also be some knowledge or some continuation along with it. It's possible that the zodiac is older than we think it is. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail. But just to lay the groundwork, the Younger Dryas impact theory. It's an ancient cataclysm. It's a theorized comet or asteroid impact. 2 impacts around 12,800 years ago, which is approximately 10,800 BC, and approximately 11,600 years ago, or 9,600 BC. This ended the last ice age, which caused a massive prehistoric megafauna extinction, along with an extinction of most life on the planet. There was a global catastrophe that affected everybody. So if there was some kind of civilization, then it would have been affected. Where did the ice go from the Ice Age? That melted ice caused ocean levels to rise, or at least possibly shift, depending on the potential impact site. We know that rivers can shift on their own, and with that kind of massive impact, with that kind of change in climate, as well as the change in the topography of the landscape, we would have seen massive shifts in the movement of people or anything that survived, and changing of waterways as well. Humans who primarily settle on the waterways would be wiped out mostly by this impact. There's a lot of evidence to show that the earliest civilizations were sea adjacent, river adjacent, relying on easy sources of food, such as like fish, turtles, crabs, and then also plants that can be grown in watery ways like rice. And then also where the first civilizations showed up were primarily abundant riverways and causeways, such as Mesopotamia and Egypt, who also have relation to this type of symbolism that we'll be talking about. Any survivors of any cataclysm would save what they could, knowledge through legends. And then I also believe that the Younger Dryas impact theory is the myth of the flood. I think it's possible that there may have been some kind of massive change in the upper part of Africa and the Mediterranean Ocean that could have changed drastically. And if there was some kind of civilization there, they would have carried along a lot of that knowledge if they could. There's evidence to suggest that a lot of ancient stonework is a lot more sophisticated than we'd like to admit, and especially the founding of the site of Göbekli Tepe demonstrates this same kind of knowledge, specifically in its layout and stonework. The stonework is something we'll talk about in probably other videos. I have something very specific in mind for this one, but this is also going to be the intro for a couple of my theories. I believe that the cataclysm, or possibly the empire itself, or civilization, was centered around the Rashat structure. I think that's a really significant structure. I think that we can demonstrate that its specific area is significant, but again, we'll get to that later. I think a massive migration east into a newly formed Mediterranean Ocean is possible. I think the foundations of Egypt, Sumer, the Temple of Baalbek, and other massive stoneworks is possible from this originator civilization. Their multiple attempts to restart civilization ended up being a couple of different things that tried to rise, and some fell, but some lasted, and that we keep in our memory. Egypt being one, Mesopotamia, Sumer, but I'll get more into those later. Again, I have something specific here. Evolution is something that is biologically very, very slow for people to adapt to. Humans are uniquely smart. We are uniquely hyper-intelligent outliers. And 10,000 years is not a long time when you consider our brain power. We have massive brain power. Everything relates to the stars and their motions. That's something that we know every human, no matter where they are on the planet, has access to before the invention of electricity. That's just something that you could have just looked up and seen the stars, the constellations in their same spot at the same time, always, all throughout your life. But the stars do move. This is a motion of the cosmos known as the precession of the vernal equinox. I believe this is the keystone to unlocking ancient symbolism, and I believe it's very, very significant. The spring equinox moves its position in the sky very, very, very slowly. It moves 1 degree in the sky every 72 years backwards through the zodiac. Its full rotation takes 25,920 years and this is known as a single Platonic year. Well, we can discuss more about the interrelational symbolism of multiple cultures when it comes to the longer spanning cycles of these type of star motions. Each zodiac sign takes approximately 2,160 years, which is an age or an eon. The last changeover was in approximately 0 or 1 AD. This is the age of Pisces that we're in. We're going to get more into what that actually means in some interpretations later. This is to coincide with the birth of Jesus Christ, but also at the same time, the cult of Mithras. This is to show the end of the last ice age, starting around 10,800 BC. And then we've gone through multiple different zodiac signs to where we are now, which is actually 2025, not 2022. But you can see that this changes over pretty regularly, but very, very slowly. This is not something that would be observable in a lifetime. This is something that would have to be written down and recorded. Mithras is a underground Roman soldier cult that started around the same time as Christianity rose. Now, it's claimed as Indo-Iranian. However, there's an alternate theory that I believe is correct. And I'm not exactly sure what the stance is of modern archaeology or this type of science is, but I believe that Professor David Ulansey is correct in his assumptions. He describes how Mithras, specifically its main motif, the tauroctony, depicts this precessional change. It was begun in the same time and place as Christianity and is an alternative path to understanding the symbolism of the stars and their motions. It's a continuation of secretive, initiatory mystery cults whose purpose was to maintain knowledge and control, such as the Isis cult, the Eleusinian cult out of Egypt, etc. Mithras has temples from Syria to England to Africa and is the origin of the word myth. It's known as their secretive meetings. They're called mouth-closed festivals. And this relates to the true name of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, known as the Book of the Opening of the Mouth. Now, we'll explain why this processional change was such a secret. This is just a depiction, quickly, of a stone motif of Mithras. In the main motif, he's slaying a bull. Now, of the tauroctony, Ulansey describes how everything in its main motif has to do with the depiction of the processional change as it was known at the time of the beginning of the civilizations of Egypt and Sumer, back when the stars could be observed in the position of having the vernal equinox in the sign of Taurus. The scorpion, the dog, the snake, the raven, the lion, and the cup is crater. There are 7 altars for 7 stars, 7 planets, otherwise known as the 7 spheres. The torch bearers that you see in most of these motifs, one is pointing up, one is pointing down. These are for the 2 equinoxes, the spring and the fall equinox. Their legs are crossed to indicate the crossing of the equatorial and the ecliptic plane, or the crossing of the sun. The Tauroctony is backwards as we see it in the sky. But we are meant to be an observer on the outside, looking in on the heavens, not the other way around. This was the secret they were trying to show. But let me explain. This is one of the Tauroctony depictions. Here we have Mithras with the Cape of Stars and the torchbearers. The main point is him killing the bull. You can see they always have, if you take a look down here, this scorpion on the bull's testicles. This is supposed to represent the bull being the vernal equinox and Scorpio being the fall equinox. This would be the position of the stars back when the sign of Taurus. Mithras can also be seen surrounded by a wheel of the zodiac. Ulansey describes that this is specifically to show that we were no longer, when Mithras was around, the sign of Taurus. That they knew that they were in the sign of Taurus and that this did change, and that they were symbolically showing this through this relief. We know that Mithras typically looks over his shoulder, which is an odd position, but it's typically always described in this way. He's either facing forward or looking over the back shoulder. This is to show that Mithras is mirrored to how we would see Perseus in the sky. They would hold these underground festivals where you would observe the Tauroctony, and then after whatever initiation, you would eventually be told that this is the depiction of the change in the stars that is unobservable to anybody. But we do have recorded knowledge, and they could demonstrate that the stars have moved and that they have a history of them moving. Now we're going to get into how detailed of a history that is in a bit. The observance of the precession was thought to be a movement of the entire heavens. This power to Bronze Age, Iron Age people was previously unknown and therefore needed some kind of god as its explanation. This means that the stars are not moving, but it's actually the entire heavens themselves, with the stars fixed in place, that are moving. The entire universe being a sphere itself of some way is where they get the symbolism of the rock or the egg. Mithras is born from the rock. He's born from the cosmic egg. So, who has the power to move the entire heavens? This was a huge deal. This is a wider movement than anybody could observe and anybody had observed, but it was known at the time. This is just a visual to understand the structure of the universe as they understood it, where the zodiac moves around and is somewhere in this cosmic sphere, and that the equinox moves because the heavens move. What has the power to move the entire heavens? And if we look at what was the North Star at the time of Taurus, being the vernal equinox, we see Alpha Draconis, otherwise known as the North Star of the constellation Draco. This star is also known as Thuban. It's directly center of the zodiacal sphere, which sits the constellation of Draco. The dragon, or the winged serpent, or the one who spins the cosmic egg, or sphere. In the time of Egypt's first dynasty, Thuban was the North Star, or the star in Draco. The Apis, or the apex bull, is the one who carries the sun. That's Taurus. The winged or feathered serpent is the master of the zodiac. It's the axis on which the entire heavens move, would be this Alpha Draconis. Knowledge of this was carried along across ages in secretive cults such as Isis and Mithras. And it spread along many religions with much symbolic overlap. You can almost take any single religion and take many key points of it, and they will relate to the stars or could be reinterpreted with the signs of the zodiac. This is a depiction of the wheel of the zodiac, and you'll notice right in the middle is the constellation of Draco. Thuban being about somewhere here on the tail of it. Same thing with Polaris. It's the central figure that spins the cosmic egg and is in control of the zodiac. And I apologize for this slide. It has a bit of a mess up on the font. But how is this depicted? There's overlap of knowledge and symbolism. Symbols are meant to be representations of real things in nature, things that are real. There's not like some actual legend of some guy who slayed the mythical bull, and now for that reason is why those guys built 1,000 temples underground all across Europe and Africa and everywhere. Many different cultures have similar symbols to denote similar things, especially if all of them saw the same stars. The zodiac is represented by the wheel. Its spin is the changing of the age, the precession. Mithras spins the wheel. Mithras is Orpheus, is Phanes, is Kronos, is the Aeon, is the Aeon. It's a representation of the long stretching time of the eons and this great power to move the heavens. That's what this symbolic God is all about. This slow motion that nobody could know about except the major scholars and astronomers of the times. This is a depiction of the cosmic egg, the Orphic egg, as being enwounded by the serpent. And then there's also more symbolism of a lion-headed serpent. This is why it would be the winged dragon. A lion head versus a regular hydra or a regular serpent. Draco specifically is the winged serpent, the one that has feathers. There's a lot of different types, and there's a lot of different cultures, but again, everybody sees the same stars, and I believe that's what it was. There's similarities that overlap across religions, including the Zoroaster, the Orphic religion, whose god is Phanes, Bacchus, Dionysus, and Adonis, Egypt, Sumer, and the Vedic religion, and even Christianity. I'm going to get into a couple more depictions of this is Mithras emerging from the rock or the cosmic egg with the wheel of the zodiac around him. Then this is another wheel that it's hard to see, but there are inscriptions of the zodiac all the way around it here. And then this is also along with a large serpent entwining a pillar. These are more clear. This is a mosaic depicting the zodiac again on a large wheel being spun. And same thing with another motif of Mithras, again his hand on the wheel spinning it. This one specifically is another mosaic. You can see his hand is on Pisces to show the vernal equinox in the sign of Pisces now. And then also to show there are other times where the one that spins the zodiac wheel is entwined by the serpent. This is a really good depiction demonstrating what I'm talking about here. The wings on the head of the serpent, the man who has the lion at the center, the wrapping of the snake, the standing on the dragon, the wheel of the zodiac. This is essentially what they were getting at. If like a gotta Poseidon is supposed to be like the oceans, like an embodiment of the oceans and the earthquakes. If he's an embodiment of that, this is an embodiment of this precessional motion. Some would say like it would be the sun. No, I think this is more significant. It's not just the regular yearly roundabout. This is much bigger, and they had knowledge of it. You'll see also different entwinements of the snake around this embodiment. And we're going to get into a little bit more of that in a bit. This is another one showing Phanes, showing the Orphic religions. This entwinement, this fiery, winged, feathered serpent. The wings on the back, sometimes 4, sometimes 2. It's meant to be like the directions. These are more detailed ones. So this also has, you'll see also embodied on them are the signs of the zodiac sometimes. But these ones you'll see are really good at showing the fiery helm, the zodiac wheel, the entwined serpent, the altar, and the rod. The rod is significant because that's the axis on which the heavens move. It is the fixed axis. So, how does all of this relate? This is the mystery of the mystery religion of Mithras. It's a really particular figure that they see motifed in many underground temples that is still unknown. And that's a lion-headed figure known as the Leontocephaline. This is often depicted as standing or being able to become outside of the zodiacal sphere, beyond the sphere of the fixed stars, this same cosmic egg. It's hard to see here, but this is the lion-headed figure, standing on a sphere outside of the sphere of the zodiac, with the zodiac in line. I've kind of zoomed it in a little bit for you. It's not really so super clear, but this is also meant to be a symbolic representation of this knowledge, and this would be passed down through this mystery cult of Mithras and explained so that way people could understand this knowledge and understand other histories as well. Because understanding this symbolism opens up and unlocks a lot of other symbolism that you can then interrelate. So we often see way different versions of this. You'll see sometimes he has wings and sometimes he'll have the signs of the zodiac on him, but this middle one is probably closest. He's holding 2 keys. He has the 4 wings. He has the serpent entwining him. This shows another man with the serpent entwined on him, as well as the signs of the zodiac on this pillar with the serpent entwining them, showing this as the spin, as this cosmic serpent. A couple of them are a little bit rougher or different. This is thought to be a demon, perhaps, but is similarly the same. You'll see demon at Ostia. This one on the left is possibly a demon. I think these are all the same. You can see some of the zodiac signs on the body of this one, but these are all, I think, the Leontocephaline. This is the lion-headed figure of the cult of Mithras. Now, how does this relate? The lion-headed figure is depicted on the outside of the sphere of the fixed stars. The zodiac is shown on the body of the Aeon along with other symbols. The cross is the changeover of the precession. The precession being the intersection of the equatorial and the ecliptic plane. This is when the sun crosses over into the next zodiac sign. The entwined serpent is meant to show the spin and changing of the ages. So the most common motif for the Leontocephaline is 6 times entwined, and then that has relation also to Zoroaster, if I'm not mistaken, but 6 times entwined. Lion head. The 6 spins of the egg, or 6 ages These are much better versions of this lion-headed deity. It's a mystery still. I believe that this is a representation of the embodiment of this long-changing precessional change of the equinox, and that this shows 6 ages have passed. 6 precessions have gone on since the beginning of recorded history as symbolically interpreted by the earliest interpretations we have via writing systems. So, if we take a look here, these are some of the most detailed ones, all wrapped 6 times. The lion head, the zodiac signs on the body, the rod to hold the cross, the crossing of the keys of the stars to unlock the knowledge of the stars, the 4 wings of the seasons, the ages. 6 in Pisces, we entered the 6th age. 6 ages ago was approximately the precessional change of Leo, which is the lion head, which is 6 times entwined, which is the approximate time of the younger Dryas. This is why the lion-headed figure has the lion head. History started, or restarted, 10,800 years ago to coincide with the beginning of the age of Leo, where the vernal equinox could be seen in the constellation of Leo. 6 ages later brings you to approximately 0 AD, and that's the beginning of the cult of Mithras. That's what they show. 6 ages. Lion head, beginning of time, beginning of the longest stretch of time that we have to our knowledge. The original civilization was wiped out. We saved what we could. This is how we passed down some of the knowledge. Some knowledge is encoded in things like the Great Pyramid. I think this is one of them. I think that this lion-headed figure shows this long stretching time change, and that this was known by people who then passed down this knowledge along different times. And that I still believe that there are people that know this now. I believe that there's evidence out there that we're not aware of that will prove that there is a civilization out there.